It's the quintessential Croatian summertime meal. Walk down any street and you'll be enveloped by the sweet aroma that will invoke feelings of home. Of course, I'm talking about Punjene Paprike, or stuffed peppers. Hi, my name is Tyler Zanke, and today I'll show you how to make this Croatian classic, one of the unique dishes that is enjoyed both on the coast and inland. So come along. To make this dish, of course, you will need peppers. For the filling, it is a meat filling, so you will need ground meat. I went with ground pork and ground beef in a 1-to-3 ratio. So that's 1 part ground pork, 2 parts ground beef. It's a very common mixture of ground meat here in Croatia. You also need rice, 1/3 cup dry, parboiled. To parboil the rice, put it into boiling water for about 5 to 7 minutes. You will need 1 medium onion or 2 small onions, chopped, and sweat in a little bit of butter and oil. 3 cloves of garlic, also minced. And if you are sweating your onions, add it into the mixture in the pan about a minute before they're done. Ideally, you don't want to brown the onions, just sweat them until they're translucent, but if you do, it's no big deal. The sweating the onions isn't necessarily a traditional thing to do for the Punjene Paprike, but I find it really cuts down on that sharp oniony flavor in the finished product. Especially these onions I got from the market today, they were quite pungent. Continue on with the filling, you'll need 1 egg, and then some spices. The traditional spices here in Croatia, especially inland, are going to be salt, black pepper, and ground paprika. For the roux in which the peppers are served, you will need flour, butter, and tomato sauce. The tomato sauce I'm using is just pure tomato sauce. It doesn't have any sort of flavoring in it. It's just tomato sauce. And of course, we will add flavorings to it. So let's get started. First, we're gonna have to clean up our peppers. You want to cut the pepper top off as so, and you reveal the inside. With a smaller knife, go through and cut out the little fronds in each of the throughout the peppers, and just simply pull out the seed casing as such. Then you're going to want to take your small knife again and just remove the rest of the straight up portions of the pepper, so you make a nice little bowl on the inside. Be careful not to cut through the pepper, as you don't want any of the filling to escape out the side. Once you pick out all the pieces, you want to go through and just get all the seeds out as well. If the seeds are getting a little bit, if the seeds are a little hard to get out, it's okay, just go grab some water, swirl them around, and dump out. Hopefully you have a sink guard to prevent the seeds from going down. Alright, once you're done, your peppers are nice and hollow, and it's ready for the filling. So I'll quickly go through the rest of these now. Okay, so now that our peppers are clean, I'm just going to go briefly into what kind of peppers you should use. The ideal pepper is one that can stand freely on its own on the base. It is not too wide, generally a little taller. So I find red peppers tend to be a bit bigger, and while they're still good, the traditional way is to have them be a little skinnier and taller. Of course, I have a multitude of different kinds of peppers here, so whatever you can find at the store works just as well. At the end of the day, they're all bell peppers, they're all going to have the same taste. Alright, now that our peppers are cleaned and ready to go, let's make the meat filling. So, like I said, we need, for the meat, 1 part pork, 2 parts beef. I went with about half a pound of pork and 1 pound of beef total. You'll need rice, parboiled. The reason we parboil the rice is because while the rice will cook during the with the peppers and everything else, when the pepper or the rice are deep inside the filling in the middle of the pepper, they might not cook as well. So you might get the outside part of the peppers cooked and the rice there is totally fine, but the inside still might be a little rough and grainy. So parboil to remove that. Just add it in. as well as the onions. If you sweat them, just make sure you let them cool down before you put them in. The oil that you sweat them in is totally okay to add into the mixture and adds an extra bit of flavor to it. And lastly, our egg. Oh, well, goodbye paper towel. And now we'll add in the spices. The most commonly used spices are going to be salt, black pepper, and of course, ground paprika. But you can add or subtract whichever ones you like. If you didn't use garlic, you can always use garlic powder. Or honestly, whatever is to your taste. You can even add maybe turmeric or something. Whatever spices you like will go great with all the peppers. So we'll add in about maybe a tablespoon of black pepper. I never know how much a tablespoon is. I just kind of go until I feel like it's enough. We'll add in about the same of salt. That should be fine. And lastly, about a teaspoon of the ground paprika. You can go with sweet or you can go with spicy. I'm now just realizing I bought spicy, which is not at all what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm not going to put paprika into this because I really do not like spice. So when you go to the store and you buy everything, make sure you double check what you buy. You don't end up in a position where you bought. I didn't even buy ground pepper. I don't know what I was doing in the store. I just got, I got hot pepper flakes and I wanted ground sweet pepper. Make sure you pay attention to what you're doing. All right, now that we have our mixture reasonably spiced, with whatever you like, go in now and just work everything together. You're essentially trying to make like a dough. Don't be afraid to really get in there and beat everything through. If you're having a bad day, it's a good way to get some anger out. So the more you work it together, or the more you work it, the more it will come together, and that's always a better thing. Truly get in there, make sure everything is evenly mixed. All your spices are evenly spaced throughout. The rice is evenly spaced. You don't want a pepper that has a lot of rice in it and no meat, or vice versa. You just want everything, basically try to be the same as you can in each bite. Right? Once you work it for a little bit, it'll start to come together. And that's when it's time to start filling your peppers. So, okay, so now it's time to fill our peppers. So, take your pepper, some amount of meat, lost a grain of rice, some amount of filling, and just kind of stuff it on in there. Try to make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom. You lose out, you don't have any air bubbles in there. You want to fill the peppers to just about maybe 1 centimeter, about ½ an inch from the top, because the rice will cook and it will expand. Remember, we only parboil the rice. And then once you're done, just place it into your pot. Make sure your pot is bigger than your tallest pepper, because you're going to cover everything in water and you want everything to be nice submerged. Right? Go through and just fill the rest of your peppers. You fill your peppers, you're going to have some leftover meat, and that's intentional. So I have 4 peppers, and this pot is definitely a little too big, but that's the point. So with your leftover meat, just take some amount of it, not be too much, and we're going to make Croatian meatballs, also known as cloves. Just roll your meatballs together and wedge them into the pot in between the peppers. This will also help stabilize them and add a little bit more fillingness to your meal. More filling. So with 4 peppers and I have about 3 cloves, you can expect to feed 3 to 4 people. One of these peppers is pretty big, so give that person to one person, and then everyone else can get one pepper, one chufte. Alright, after this, I'm just going to quickly wash my hands, then we'll add some water to the pot and set it onto the stove. Okay, back from washing my hands, and with all the peppers and the chufte in the pot, we're going to fill with water. There's no real amount of water to add in. Basically, just pour in enough so that you cover the peppers. These need a lot of water. So one of the other, reasons why you'd want to have similarly sized peppers, so that they're all around the same height, is so that they all start to cook a bit evenly and you don't need to put so much water into your pot. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on the stove and let it come up to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, turn the heat down, let it simmer for 30 minutes. And I'll see you then. So it has not yet quite been 30 minutes, but it's a perfect time to start on the roux. So the punjene paprike are served in a soup made up of the cooking water plus the roux we're about to make. So to make the roux, you're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of flour, and 200 milliliters or about 1 cup of the tomato sauce. The tomato sauce, just a reminder again, is just the pure tomatoes that have been crushed and made into a sauce. There's no flavoring in it at all. So because of that, of course, again, we're going to need to flavor the roux. To do so, we will use about a tablespoon of salt, about a tablespoon of pepper, and of course, if you have the correct pepper, paprika, you would use about a tablespoon of that as well. But of course, the spices are always to your taste. So let's head over to the stove and make the roux. So put the flour and butter into the pot. You could add the butter first and let it melt before you put the flour in, although I haven't found it makes much difference. Once the butter does start to melt, start to stir the flour and butter together to form a roux. Once everything is well mixed, let it cook for a little bit to get rid of the raw flour taste. You'll know it's ready when it starts to bubble up. So once the roux is fully cooked, add in your tomato sauce and whisk it together for it forms one cohesive mixture. After everything is mixed together, add in your spices, namely salt, pepper, paprika, or anything else you'd like to add in. Whisk everything together again and let it cook until it starts to bubble up. After everything is bubbled up, we'll add it into the main pot with the peppers. After the peppers have been in the pot for 30 minutes, we'll add the roux into the center of the pot. Make sure to scrape the entire roux pot to get everything into the main pepper pot. Once everything is in, stir together to mix the roux throughout the cooking water. Set the peppers upright and let continue cook for another 10 minutes. After the full 40 minutes have passed, remove the peppers and the chufte to a side platter. And then boil down the roux until you get to your desired consistency. So once you've reduced your soup to its desired consistency, salted, peppered, added any spices that you'd like, it's time to plate. Before we do, I just want to go over briefly as to how you know when your paprika are done. Don't touch the pot, it's hot. So the paprika will be soft to the touch, but still keep their shape. That's how you know when they're done. You can cook them for longer, but it will start to degrade the integrity of the paprika and it turns a little bit mushy. So I found 40 minutes total is really that sweet spot where the paprika have softened just enough, but they still have a little bit of a crunch to them. So we'll plate. Let's take one of our paprika, one of our chufte, of course, and now we'll add some soup into the bottom. This is where a lot of the flavor comes from. And now we have our punjene paprike, or stuffed peppers. Dobar tek.